to SoulShift, the podcast that challenges you to rethink what's possible through the lens of community wisdom and social justice. I'm your host, JyOba X, and together we'll dive deep into the intersection of community wisdom and radical possibilities and social justice.
The legacy of activist artist.
Today's episode is about the quiet activism of celebrity. Whether they're a popular sports figure, hip hop performance, literary, or visual artist, the greatest always have an interest in advancing a passionate, noteworthy cause. Personally, I think of the art and activism of individuals like Harry Belafonte, Nina Simone, and Josephine Baker. During their time, they made significant contributions to their respective creative genres while advancing civil rights, racial equality, and social justice. They left us legacies that extended far beyond their creative portfolios. And their impact on the historical consciousness of Blackness in America is definitely worthy of the title Wisdom Practitioner. Their soul shifting continues to resonate and inspire contemporary artists like Janet Jackson, Beyonce, Janelle Monáe, Kendrick Lamar, Rihanna, John Legend, and more. Their significance as celebrity creators literally reverberates across millions, if not billions of souls, right? The resonance they emit amplifies their mission driven advocacy to create a just, fair, and equitable society. That persona or charisma permeates beyond their creativity for us and the communities we serve as fellow activists, elders, and wisdom practitioners. It serves as an adhesive element that binds the cultural forces we at SoulShift believe are critical for the cultivation of communal solidarity. Think of the timeless significance of Bob Marley's One Love anthem, how it resonates across diverse people and attitudes to bond people together. Even people who don't like each other will rally and sing that song. That's the power of culture. That's how we begin to deconstruct the oppressive power structures that seek to maintain the status quo. I argue that's how we begin to dismantle global anti Blackness. We do so by cultivating the essence of who we are as Black people, by living our authentic truth and resisting the encroachment of appropriation within Blackness, right? That means we continue to add value back to Blackness if we're going to dismantle global anti Blackness. So we cultivate it like it's soil. So our tree of wisdom reaches to the sun and the roots reach deep down into the core of the earth.
Extreme fandom and stan culture.
Today, I want us to spend a little time examining how charismatic artists influence culture and fandom through their performance of art and advocacy. Extreme fandom, although fanatical, provides us with observable, low hanging fruit. In our global culture today, extreme fandom is commonly referenced as stan. If you're connected to pop culture, then I'm sure you're familiar with Nicki Minaj's Barb's, Beyonce's Beehive, and Rihanna's Navy. By the way, why is it uncommon for solo man artists to have stands? Is it a genderized concept? Makes one wonder, huh? Well, if they exist, please share in the comments if there are male solo artists who have stands and what those stand names are. I'm completely intrigued and interested. Anyway, when you think about the radical possibilities that come with fan culture or extreme fandom, those possibilities can be either good or bad, right? So consider serial killers, preachers, and cult leaders. They all have stands. Well, how about we not go down that rabbit hole today? But I'm sure y'all get my drift, right? On a more positive note, take a moment and consider your favorite performance artist or entertainer. In my case, that would be Prince Rogers Nelson. also known as Prince. If his fan base had a name, we'd probably be called the Purple Gang or the Purple Army, especially since purple is argued to be his favorite color. Which brings us to this week's episode and all of this purple going on in my background.
Prince, the quiet activist.
The quiet activism of celebrity, featuring my all time favorite artist, who just happens to be Prince. So, we don't tend to think of popular artists as activists. And when the practice of their activism is visible, we often view it with a bit of skepticism, which tends to happen when you get overzealous PR agents prescribing hyperbole and publicity stunts to extend an artist's celebrity appeal. Let me insert a shameless plug. My handy dandy PR agent is your index maker. So please press like for this video and subscribe to this channel today. Yeah, do it today, right now. And thank you. So now most of us can tell when someone is disingenuous about advocating for a social justice cause. We see inauthentic performance of empathy and advocacy by celebrities every day seeking to reform their image. They gravitate to issues like homelessness, domestic violence, food insecurities, and gay, lesbian, and transgender rights. Politicians do it, religious leaders do it, and entertainers do it as well. To be honest, it can be a mutually beneficial relationship when celebrity can be leveraged to advance a cause. So the good ones, those prolific artists, the authentic artists that are out there, they embrace the cause wholeheartedly with their full selves. They live and breathe the cause, which makes them even more endearing to their fan base or stands. Therefore, in this episode, we feature Prince, who, besides being a musical genius, was a quiet and impassioned philanthropist and activist. So, first, we'll go through a brief origin story of his early life in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Second, we'll review a few of his social justice causes he dedicated his passion and influence towards. And we'll also review what I consider to be his top 5 songs for a social cause. And then we'll wrap this puppy up with sometimes celebrity and community wisdom can coexist within our favorite artists. And as such, the radical possibilities are endless when you start to think about it from that standpoint, right? But first, let me share my positionality within this episode. Full transparency here, y'all. Consider me a bona fide member of Prince's Purple Brigade. Yeah, I'm just kind of going through a whole bunch of names that I'm proposing for our stands. So if you got a good one, put it in the comments. Maybe it'll stick. So right now we're going to go with the brigade idea. So although it's not officially a thing, I'd be a full-fledged dues-paying member of the Purple Gang, brigade/fan. During my youth, Prince represented a bounty of radical possibilities for my pubescent preteen spirit. He was my crush, my creative inspiration, and guiding light to all things sane during a time when I struggled with my sexuality and identity. In many ways, he is arguably the reason I'm living within my radical truth and promise today. It's why I get to sit here in front of you confidently as a scholar, strategist, and an activist, and even as a SoulShift podcast host. In the 80s, everything about Prince, this sexy, skinny, provocative man named Prince, was mesmerizing. His rhythmic falsetto vibrations enticed me like a snake oil salesman on shrooms. If you know, you know. The 80s was already destined to be awkward, y'all. After the passing of beatnik culture in the 60s and the hyper sexualized disco era of the 70s, Prince literally propelled my Gen X generation into the 80s. So Prince to me is like royalty. He owned and resonated that awkwardness and blackness with a shroud of purple goth. He channeled Jimi Hendrix and amplified his essence into this radical possibility we now know as Prince. His piercing eyes radiated this mysterious energy for me that I'd like to think only a queer pubescent preteen like myself could really truly appreciate. It probably wasn't helpful that I grew up in a Baptist church on Detroit's east side, yet there was never a lack for sexual energy in the youth activities in which I participated. Prince was just that deal for me, right? So I'll own it, though I'm sure it's how I viewed the world around me at the time as well. Nevertheless, my condition was influenced by my environment. It made me hypersensitive to an iconic figure like Prince, arguably a black queer presenting, and I emphasize queer presenting man because in the end, I don't think Prince was queer at all in terms of his sexuality. He was queer acting because he always thought outside the box, but he was not a queer man. So I just want to kind of put that out there because some people view queerness totally in a strict aspect of just being about sexuality, and really being queer is about thinking differently. Being queer is about doing and doing and acting different outside of the norm and the status quo. So that attracted me to his confident and fearless state of I don't give a flying fudge being. So Prince, he captivated all my burgeoning sensibilities. Liken it to the various TV sitcoms like Saturday Night Live and the hyper heterosexual men in the skits who would lose all self control when a sexually fluid and confident Prince walked into the room. The man emasculated a room like a succubus on steroids. Needless to say, I was definitely glamored by his sex appeal. And get this, that was all before I even saw the Dirty Mind album cover for real, y'all.
Prince's early life and musical journey.
So get this. Prince's government name is Prince Rogers Nelson. He was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota on June 7th, 1958. Hence the reason it's been really important for me to get this Soul Shift episode out into the ecosystem, right? Out there before the end of June, because I had to get those early episodes around community wisdom and wisdom practitioners out there to really lay the groundwork and the foundation for this podcast. So this Prince podcast has been on the back burner up until today. So I'm excited to really have this out here before the end of the month. Also, it just happens to be Black Music Month here in the United States as well. But people in this audience and people who know me, we all know, like Black History Month, every month is Black Music Month in this country because country and rock and roll were inspired by the blues. And I argue that the pop genre popularity was heavily influenced by Motown and R&B. I'm just saying. So, Prince's father, John L. Nelson, was a jazz pianist and songwriter. Prince's mother, Mattie Della Shaw, was a jazz singer. So again, Prince was heavily influenced by his parents, also including his stepfather's influence in him cultivating himself into being a musical genius. Of course, he had a lot of help with that, but when you have the instincts for it, yeah, the man cultivated himself into the talent that he was. It was natural. He learned to play the piano by the age of 7 and later taught himself guitar and drums. He struggled with the separation of his parents at the age of 10, and while attending high school, he formed his first band. That band was called Grand Central. And in that band also there was Andre Simone and Morris Day. They both became prominent figures in the Minneapolis music scene back during that time. At the age of 19, Prince secured his first record contract with Warner Bros., which led to the release of his debut album, For You, in 1978.
Prince's philanthropy and social justice.
So, with that said, Prince was also a philanthropist committed to social justice, education, and community empowerment. He cultivated having a positive impact without seeking personal recognition. He was a quiet change maker and a wisdom practitioner to the communities that he both served and entertained. His numerous anonymous donations and charitable works included Green for All, an environmental justice organization which focuses on creating green jobs for underserved communities. Yes, We Code, founded by Van Jones to teach young people from disadvantaged backgrounds how to code and gain valuable skills for the tech industry. The Harlem Children's Zone, which provides educational, social, and health services to children and their families in Harlem to break the cycle of poverty. He also supported underserved communities through his donations to public libraries and community centers. He also funded hackathons by Yes We Code to encourage young people to solve real world problems using technology. Prince was a generous philanthropist and a prolific and innovative artist whose career spanned multiple decades. His influence in the music industry included hits like Purple Rain, which was released in 1984. It was the soundtrack for the self titled film Purple Rain, which spent 24 consecutive weeks at number one on the Billboard 200 charts. He also won an Oscar for scoring the Purple Rain film. The album 1999, released in 1982, solidified his reputation as a forward thinking artist blending funk, rock, and pop. Sign of the Times, released in 1987, is widely regarded as a masterpiece, showcasing his versatility across genres. And let's not forget his 2007 Super Bowl halftime performance. The sky literally opened up, pouring torrential rain in the middle of the performance. And what did Prince do? He kept performing and getting inspired with his amazing guitar riffs during the performance in front of millions of people during the halftime show. The only thing we needed was for the rain to be purple at the time. As a fan, it was so apropos and simply one of the greatest memories a fan could ever have. In his battle with Warner Brothers, Prince showed how he was a formidable strategist. And as far as I'm concerned, he fought and won that battle, y'all. He fought and won that battle by changing his name to an unpronounceable sound. Who does that, right? He made a bold move to change his name to an unpronounceable symbol to protest his record label and highlight his fight for artistic freedom and control over his work. I mean, literally, they owned his work since the late 1970s. 2004, Musicology marked his return to mainstream success and led to critical acclaim and two Grammy Awards. Prince's contributions as an advocate and artist are indicative of how wisdom practitioners inspire community. In his philanthropy and advocacy, he earned the respect of his peers and fans. In his music, Prince is recognized for mentoring and producing hits for artists like Sheila E., The Time, Vanity Six, Sinead O'Connor, Shaka Khan, and many more. As a tireless advocate, he encouraged music artists to own their own masters and maintain complete creative control over their project. Who better to send this message than a wisdom practitioner like Prince?
Top 5 Prince songs for social change.
Given his prolific discography, it's only fitting that we shed some light on the iconic social change songs and his distinguished catalog. So, in this episode, SoulShift has selected the top 5 songs for social change by Prince. These songs reflect his deep concern for social issues and shares a strong desire to transform radical possibilities into promise with seamless social commentary to raise awareness and inspire change. When you pull it all together, the man was and remains awe inspiring. So, what a fitting tribute and what a gift he's left us. As it relates to our theory of community, wisdom, His catalog is a repository of cultural wisdom and knowledge. We at SoulShift consider it, along with his legacy, both timeless and priceless. So let's get this top five list going, y'all. SoulShift's top five Prince songs for social change. First, let me share that I pulled a Casey Kasem. Those of y'all who know. I pulled a Casey Kasem and I put two songs in the top five spot. So here we have Sign of the Times, released in 1987. It was critically acclaimed, addressing social issues such as drug addiction, gang violence, AIDS, and poverty. Sharing that number five spot is 1999, released in 1982. It's an obvious party anthem, right? We all know that. Everybody's probably heard it, sung it, bopped to it, whatever. But it also carries a message about the looming threat of nuclear war at that time and the need for disarmament. In the fourth position, we have The Cross, released in 1987. We love it when Prince gets moody, y'all. There ain't nothing like it when Prince gets moody and in his feelings and mixes it with spirituality, redemption, and distinctive guitar riffs. The Cross addresses the struggles and suffering in the world, offering a message of hope and spiritual salvation. I love The Cross. It probably seems odd to have that on this list, but when I revisited that song, it just felt like, man, The Cross is that deal. So revisit it when you get a chance, you get a moment, drop some comments on what your thoughts is on that song. At number three, we have Controversy, released in 1981. It challenged societal norms and questions the status quo regarding race, religion, and sexuality, which are intersectional themes we consider foundational to steadily soul shifting our society. And the runner up is Baltimore. Released in 2015, it was written in response to the death of Freddie Gray and the subsequent protest in Baltimore against police brutality. And finally, at the top of our social change songs by Prince, we have America, released in 1985. This song is so appropriate given the current times in which we're enduring here in the United States, as well as globally in a lot of different places, especially in Western societies, right? Our politics appear to be broken. We can't seem to find common ground. Our patriotism is on the rise in a scary, weird kind of way. So, in the song, America celebrates American ideals while at the same time critiquing the country's shortcomings and urging it to live up to its principles of freedom and justice. Given current times, there are some people who deny giving deference to truth. Sounds crazy, but you know what? If you're on the verge of becoming an autocracy, truth is something that you just have to delegitimize everything in order to pass off what you want others to believe, especially when it's immoral and not right. Some would rather dispose of our democracy and our core values to retain power and privilege amongst the few.
Conclusion and call to action.
So, how does this list correspond with yours? Please share and drop your top five in the comments section below and let's discuss. There are plenty of songs that could be on this list. Does your favorite artist or entertainer measure up or even surpass what was shared today about Prince in this episode? Does your favorite artist or entertainer measure up or even surpass what was shared today about Prince in this episode? If so, I'd love to hear about it. Please drop it in the comments. Teach me something. I'm totally open to learning this space. All thoughts are valued and welcome as long as they're cordial and respectful. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Soul Shift, where we transform radical possibilities into reality. If you enjoyed today's discussion and want to stay connected, be sure to follow us and subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And also, if you're more prone to audio, favorite the Soul Shift podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Soul Shift will be there. Your support helps us continue to explore and amplify the wisdom of our communities. So, until next time, remember, together we can shift the soul of our society. Stay inspired, stay connected, and keep transforming those radical possibilities into promise. And let's keep steadily soul shifting society together. Peace and blessings, y'all.